All right, today's video, I want to talk to you about the unemployment in South Dakota and how we stack up against the rest of the nation. So let's take a look. And we are sitting here on April 21. So currently, the new unemployment claims since the start of the COVID-19 crisis have increased by 4.9%. Now that's a really large increase, but the good news is that we're the only state that's under 5% so far. So if we take a look, and this is actually from the Wall Street Journal, this is quoting it. It's saying that South Dakota, let me move that here a minute. South Dakota, 4.9% of the workforce has filed, while in Hawaii, almost 22% of the workforce has filed for unemployment. So here you kind of see the percentage across the bottom. California here at about 15% of the population. Michigan, right, with the really strict shelter in place, over 20%. The size of the circle is how many people have applied. South Dakota right down here. So both in the number of people that have applied is small because we're a small state, but also the percentage of the workforce that has applied is the lowest in the nation. So that is good news for us. Let's take a look, though, in the sense of how they compare, how the states compare by COVID cases. So here you see from 0 to 25. This is the rate of unemployment claims increase. So Hawaii you see here up at a high, and South Dakota you see down here in the low. And then across this side is kind of the number of cases per 10,000 people. So of course New York is that big one. New Jersey, Louisiana, right? Those are the ones that are all have a high number of cases. So South Dakota, if you kind of draw a line here, it doesn't have the lowest number of cases, right? We're kind of average in that sense. Hawaii actually has lower cases per 10,000 people than we do, and yet has a much higher unemployment rate. Also quoting from that article, South Dakota is one of 5 states without that blanket stay-at-home order, which they think helps. Also, though, that claims have also been limited by the state's large pool of financial and healthcare sector workers concentrated in Sioux Falls, who have felt less impact than workers in service industries. The challenge is that could change as the recession starts hitting healthcare. So this was in the Argus Leader. Avera Health said Friday that across its entire health system, about 650 employees are being furloughed, and another 1,500 will see hours reduced. And that's because hospitals, and this is nationwide, as they gear up for COVID, they are not able to do the elective surgeries and the normal things they do from a day-to-day basis that produce revenue. So we could see more unemployment in Sioux Falls than we currently do, or in South Dakota. So what about the unemployment trust fund? So we've looked at the number of people that are applying for unemployment that have been laid off, but then it comes down to, can we supply the unemployment funds for those people? We talk about unemployment insurance, and we have this idea that somehow it's insurance, it's guaranteed money, it's going to come. Well, maybe, but maybe not, right? When it really comes down to it, there is a slush fund of money that's set aside to pay the unemployment benefits, and that is not unlimited. So it cannot go on to it cannot pay all of our people, and it can't pay all of our people forever, right? It's got a limit to it. Unless the Fed kicks in and does some magic and creates some more money. But if you look here, this actually comes from the National Department of Labor, and it kind of shows you how many states are solvent, basically ready for a recession, and how many states really don't have enough money to get through a recession. And so if you check this out, you've got right here, these states, these 22 states, really don't have enough money to weather a recession. They're going to run out of money very quickly. You're seeing that in New York already, right? They've asked, I think, for a $4 billion loan, interest-free loan from the Fed in order just to stay solvent. We're only 3-4 weeks into this thing, so they're in big trouble. Then you have the states up here, about 21 states or so, whatever the math is, 31 states, and it's got some territories in here. I think the Virgin Islands are in here as well. But they have either 1 to 1.5, and I'll break this down in a second, or greater than 1.5, and this is really in years how much money they have. South Dakota is up here in this category, so it's in the highest category, and if you take a look, South Dakota actually sits at 5th place in the highest cost, or the highest trust fund value for their employees. So that looks pretty good. This line right here has to do with, this is kind of the line they want you to see on the right-hand side. Be over there when you're coming into a recession. These guys down here, California, New York, they're going to be hurting when it comes to paying their people unemployment claims. So here you kind of see, as of January of this year, the South Dakota Trust Fund had about $136 million in it, earning about $3 million in interest in 2019. And then I'm going to break down kind of what these things mean. So the first ratio they look at is the reserve ratio. The reserve ratio is essentially the trust fund balance divided by the state's total wages. And so the trust fund balance we just looked at, it was 136 million. State's total wages are about 14 billion from what I could calculate. And so that gives us a reserve ratio of 0.98. That's just under 1%. 1% of the wages is set aside in the trust fund in order to pay unemployment claims. The second ratio they look at is called the benefit cost rate, or the benefit cost ratio, and it's the amount of benefits paid out divided by the state's total wages. And so what they look at is they say, okay, let's look at the three highest years that we paid out a lot of money. So look at the past recessions over the last 20 years, and let's take the highest one of those, let's know what that is, and then let's take the average of the highest three. Well, the average of the highest three is 54.54, and the highest is actually 0.68. The low, I think the last year's was 0.18. And so if you do the math on this, what this means is that we would expect to pay out about $76 million per year in benefits during an average recession, okay, if we're paying it out at this rate of 0.54. Then they look at the solvency level, and that's this thing across the bottom. This is where they want to see you above 1. So South Dakota is 1.81. So at a burn rate of $76 million per year, we could last about 1.8 years or 22 months before the trust fund would run out. And remember, 1 is kind of the middle, the minimum requirement to be solvent. Now, of course, that's just trying to estimate what it would look like in a coming recession, which is what we're in, right? We're in that right now. We were saving for a rainy day, and now it's the time when we need to use this trust fund. Now, of course, you can change that solvency rate by changing the number of unemployed people, right? How deep is that recession? And 2, changing the length of that recession. So just to give you some context, in the height of the 2008 recession, South Dakota unemployment peaked at about 6%. The current South Dakota unemployment rate is about 8%, right? So it's about 2% higher today, and I think it's trending higher probably, right? Those Avera workers, they're not in this 8% number yet. And of course, a higher unemployment rate equals a faster burn rate. So that would mean that we don't have 22 months, maybe we have only 12 months, given that more people are filing for unemployment. And then also we don't know how long the recession is going to last, right? Is it going to last the full 22 months, or maybe we're done with it in 6 months and we get back to work and everything is good? Then perhaps we have enough money to pay for people, even though the unemployment rate is higher this time around. So this looks at the unemployment over the last 40 years in South Dakota. You see back here in the 1980s, you had about a 7% was the peak. Here in the 2008 economic crisis, the housing bubble, you had about the 6%. And if you think about the chart, right, we're going to end up, when this updates here next month, we're going to be up here in the 8% bracket. So we're going to be the highest unemployment rate in the last 40 years. All right, so I don't know that was a whole lot of good news. Obviously, South Dakota being quite conservative, fiscally conservative, not doing a stay-at-home order, trying to keep businesses open, trying to innovate, trying to be entrepreneurial, I think has probably helped. Obviously, we're not through the peak yet, so it remains to be seen. We could end up with maybe higher rates of infection. I'm not sure what that looks like. But we've chosen a path, and we're going down that path. So anyway, I think economically we're in a good position compared to the rest of the country, and we will see how that plays out over the next few months, both on the infection rates, but also on the unemployment and the economic side of things. Of course, we're always here to help. Let us know. We're doing our best to keep ahead of this, keeping everyone informed and taking care of your house, your investment, if you're an owner, your home, if you're a renter. Just let us know if we can do anything, and we'll do everything in our power to help you through this. We'll talk to you later. Thank you.